분명 그대는 나일세 분명 그대는 나일세 나는 미쳤모.
Hello, and welcome to our fifth discussion about Idu, the writing system used by the ancient Koreans 2,000 years ago or so, in which we find a key to unlocking Korea's early historical period. I'm Steve Shields, president of the Royal Asiatic Society Korea, and joining me today is Dr. Kim Yong-Duk, emeritus professor at Sogang University and past president of Royal Asiatic Society Korea. And today we're going to talk about the Shin Kim family, the new Kim clan, who lived down in the southern part of the peninsula near Changwon. The place where they lived, we call it, what's the place where they lived? What's the name of that place?
Tahori.
Tahori is the modern name. And in the ancient times, what did they call their city?
Karaburigi.
Karaburigi.
Yeah.
And that's an Idu transcription of Chinese characters, which we also know those Chinese characters, and it was called, what were the Chinese characters for their city? Kalhwa Song?
Yeah, Kalhwa Song.
Song.
It's the ancient name.
That's the ancient name. Yeah.
Tahori.
Right.
Archaeological site.
Right. And at Tahori is quite a large archaeological site, if I'm understanding that correctly. Tombs have been found there.
That's right.
And remnants of the ancient wall of the settlement of the city.
That's what I think.
We think there's walls
Yeah.
there. Clearly, it was, in those ancient times, most likely a walled city. The walls would have been earthwork, maybe some stones, but over the centuries, stones are carried off for other purposes, I think. So let's let's talk about the time frame here. What is the time period that we're going to talk about Tahori? When were the Kims there?
Well, I have to start with the tomb inscription
Okay.
of the King Munmu,
Okay.
all around the 7th century.
So King Munmu of Shilla,
Yeah.
7th century, the 600s,
They-
there's an
they-
inscription of the tomb.
You see, people knew the inscription of this tombstone of King Munmu tells that his ancestor was from originally from the Huns. And this tomb inscription describes as his fifth generation grandfather named Kim Il-che, and the 15th ancestor, king had the name of Songhan, and the original founder, the ancestor of the Kims was the priest serving God. So people are curious to know, how come these people had all the ancestors, generation away from Korea.
Yeah. So the Huns were an ancient group of people who lived in the grassland steppes of Asia.
That's right.
These days, that particular area would be like Mongolia. That's where
Some
the steppes
part of
are,
it.
some parts of Mongolia. But this is before Mongolia.
Right.
A couple of thousand years or so.
Right.
We know the Huns in more modern history from countries like Hungary and Finland, Turkey. And when we read in modern history of Europe that 1,000 or more years ago, these Huns came across from the east, and so those are the same people group who also came down the peninsula.
That's right.
In ancient times.
Right.
And so King Munmu says his 15th great grandfather was one of these people that came down from the north.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So And the 15th great grandfather had some sort of a priestly function for the community, for the people.
15th.
The 15th.
Yeah,
Great.
was the King Songhan.
Oh, he was king.
And
Okay.
the previous ancestor.
Previous to that
Yeah.
was, okay. So we're going back. When you talk 15 generations, that's a long time. So when did these people start coming into the Korean Peninsula?
That's a good question, you know.
Okay.
In Korean Chronicle, these Kims are supposed to be born from an egg
Right.
in the golden casket from the heaven.
Right.
But then it turns out the tomb inscription of the King Mummu says otherwise. But people wondering, you know, how it could be true.
Mm,
That,
yeah.
So the scholars and many people are interested, you know, went to China,
Yeah.
look up documentary, archaeological remains, you know. It turns out the whole story is true. Actually, the Kim Il-jae was assigned, actually, he was the son of Prince of the Huns who fought against Han China,
Okay.
1st century BC.
First century BC.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was made prisoner, you know, after defeat, you know.
Right.
He was made the groom of the Han Emperor Mu. And somehow, according to what I learned, that this prince was, saved emperor from assassination.
Oh.
And eventually he went to battleground and meritorious deed and so on. He was in fifth in one of the area in Shantung province.
Okay.
And his grandson, Kim Dang,
Yeah.
was also feudal lord
feudal
there
lord,
in Shantung
yeah.
province, you know.
Shandong province is located where in relation to the Korean Peninsula?
So it's just across from the Incheon.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're talking only a few dozen, 100 kilometers across the Yellow Sea there.
That's right.
So it's right there,
That's right.
right nearby.
But
Yeah.
the question is, the Kims become a royal family only after 356. So the question is, how come these people from China, feudal lord, and the royal family of Shilla, I mean, there's a gap of 333 years.
Right, yeah.
Where were they living?
Mm,
That's my question, no?
yeah, yeah.
Well, probably people wondered, you know, but didn't raise enough question or curiosity.
So we have in the early history of Korea,
Yeah.
the peninsula,
Right.
some many years BC,
Right,
we
right.
had several small states on the peninsula.
Not exactly.
They were
Yeah,
not
yeah,
states
yeah,
in the
yeah.
modern sense of a state, but some sort of a tribal
Yeah, villages all over.
connection
yeah.
and whatever. And so what became this Kim clan, they came down from the north into this land where there were different kinds of people.
And, you know, we've talked about this, the royal family of the Sox
Right.
and the Parks.
And the Pox of Shilla, yep.
Found out they're from people who fled from the hard toils of building China Wall,
So the
2nd century BC.
the Pox and the Sok
Yeah.
families,
Yeah,
2nd century BC,
yeah.
had been conscripted perhaps to build the Great Wall, what we know as the Great Wall of China.
So they ran away.
And they fled
Yeah.
probably east and south into
Went
the
to the
peninsula.
Pyongyang area first.
Went where?
Pyongyang.
Oh, the Pyongyang. Okay, so
Yeah.
Pyongyang area,
Because
modern Pyongyang
In
area.
the lowland,
Yeah.
the Chinese commandery was set up in 1st century BC.
BC. Yep.
So they stayed there for about a century or so.
So Lolong
Yeah.
is where in relationship to Pyongyang? Just north of there, isn't
That's
it?
a Pyongyang area.
It's a Pyongyang
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So that's been a settlement or a fortress back
Not
in-
in that area. We don't know.
Lolong was
No, Dolang is a Chinese
it was a
commandery.
commandery.
Yeah,
So they had some sort of a military base or something there.
probably that's a
village,
colonial
town,
province.
colonial province.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And it turned out they fled again to the
Mm.
south. And there are 4 different areas, archaeological sites, in the way they found Chinese mirrors of Han China. Yeah,
So Han China, what was the time period of Han China, the early Han?
2nd century BC.
2nd century BC to
2nd century after.
about 2nd
Yeah.
century after
3rd century
modern
after,
era. And so you're saying that in tombs in the southern part of the peninsula,
Yeah,
they've found artifacts from that era
that's right.
in the tombs of people.
Yeah.
Do we know who those people are?
But we talked about it.
Yeah.
And 2 of them at Suyuri
Yeah,
and also Sorari and also this Joyangdong
right.
was an archaeological site or better ground
Burial.
of the Sox and the Pak.
The Suk and the Pak
But
family.
next, the Kims, that's what we are talking
Yeah,
about.
so we're talking about the Kims. So the Kims lived at modern Tahori.
That's what I think.
We call modern.
Yeah.
That's your preposition
Yeah.
here. And what evidences have been found archaeologically that would suggest the possible Kim family settlement there?
That's a good question, That I was curious too. And I don't know why people didn't raise this question before. And it turned out more than 30 years ago, they made an archaeological investigation of the area called Tahori. It's
Okay, yeah, that's helpful to see.
It's Nakdong River runs
Okay,
around.
this is the
and
Nakdong
goes
River.
Kimhae and Busan area.
And
And this is Changwon area right
Changwon is down here.
there. Yeah. And this is
and
a
so
place called Tahori,
Tahori is
right next to this Nakdong River.
Just
And there's a
Nakdong
famous
River and,
Chuan Reservoir.
okay, big reservoir there.
That's where this winter ground for migratory birds.
Okay.
Very famous.
Okay.
But then it turns out in that the small area called Tahori, they made a discovery of 70 or so tombs.
Okay.
But then tombs of not the usual coffins, but then log coffin made of log.
Log, yeah.
Log was cut in half.
Cut in half.
And they're up,
carved
and
out.
The place there.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's a
And then here's
place
a
like
picture
this.
of Tahori now. This
See?
is a modern
There's
photo.
a reed there,
Yeah.
and that's a wet area,
And this is
wetland.
wetland. Okay.
Wetland.
Mhm. Yeah.
more or less,
Yeah.
So there's lots
Yeah.
of reeds,
Yep. Yep.
That's where they had the
Reeds.
cemetery.
So the reeds naturally growing in the wetlands.
Yeah, in this area.
Okay.
Near the Nakdong River
Yep.
or Reservoir too,
Mm-hmm.
modern day.
Mm.
And my curiosity, I read somewhere that coins found in one of this first tomb of this Tauri area had the Chinese Han Dynasty coin, 3 pieces of them. But I read in the paper that there was a shipwreck in Komundo,
Mm-hmm.
little distance,
Right.
and they had
It's off the west coast.
that's
of
right,
Korea.
southern
Yeah.
coast,
Yeah.
and
Southwest coast.
980 pieces of coins of the same type.
So a whole horde.
Yeah,
But they were on a ship that sunk.
yeah.
And so when they investigated the sunken ship, they found this
Somehow it preserved the
Uh-huh.
shipwreck.
uh-huh,
2,000 years ago,
2,000
shipwreck.
years
no?
it's been on
Somehow.
the bottom of the
But-
ocean. Wow.
Oh, that's
So one of the things that I think you're really good at, Dr. Kim, is raising questions
I'm
that
curious.
that, and
Yeah.
you once called it the riddles of history
Okay,
because we don't often have the direct answer.
that's right.
Most academics in Korea are really reluctant to entertain any new ideas.
That's I
They-
don't know.
They want to hold fast to that national narrative, almost greedily.
Well,
They don't. If you're not one of them, you can't raise a question. And I think that sometimes when you're in academia, you can't see the trees because of the forest. And you are good at picking out the trees and saying, now, wait a minute.
that's right.
What about this?
Yeah. So I told you, this Tahori must be the area where this they found the treasure
Yeah.
of Chinese Han Dynasty
Yeah.
goods,
Not just the coins, but
But
other
coins.
mirrors and implements, tools, those kinds of
Exactly.
things. Yeah.
I will show you some of the pictures.
Yeah.
So many pictures. Like this daggers
Yeah.
with scabbard.
With a scabbard. Yeah.
All lacquered,
And the scabbards are lacquer ware.
Yeah.
But these are Han Chinese
Han Chinese.
implements found in the far south corner of the
All
Korean
this
Peninsula.
weaponry, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And look at this horn-shaped
Uh-huh.
drinking cup.
Okay. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
another,
Yeah.
items I've
From-
paid special attention
Uh-huh.
because nomadic people, including the Huns, were supposedly fond of drinking
Okay.
out of this
Out of
horn-shaped
horns.
cup.
Yeah. They were
So
basically.
there's a special shape.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then look here. Iron ores.
Iron ore. Yeah.
They're found in that tombs,
Yeah.
and also the hammers to work on that,
The blacksmithing
Yeah.
tools. Yeah.
and all this.
And well, we know that 2,000 years ago in that southern part of Korea, there was a lot of iron working.
Iron,
iron ore and some iron
yeah, iron ore
working.
was available.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
And look at this,
Mm.
all this artifact that
Mhm.
they
Wow.
found, including this weeder. The instrument that get rid of weed.
Oh,
They
it's
call it a
like,
weeder.
like a scythe or something that can
Yeah, something
plack
like this.
the
yeah.
weeds with it. Yeah. Yeah.
And all this
Fish hooks.
fish hook.
Hmm.
I mean, people don't run away with the fish hooks, huh?
Not usually.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
we go to ceramic ware.
Ceramic, not the ceramic, the pottery.
Well, pottery. Yeah. Yeah. Earthenware.
Yeah.
That
earthenware.
is the better term. Yep. And then they're horn shaped.
Then
Oh, and here's the coins.
this
here.
sort of log coffin.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah.
the coffin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these are the Chinese coins.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be what do you call the weight for the balance?
Wait for scales.
Scales. huh?
Yeah, to measure the balance weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
There's a word for it. I can't think of it right offhand.
You don't call it the weight?
Yeah, they're called weights, but there's a technical term
Oh, okay. Okay.
for that
Yeah.
balance scale.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
most everybody will know what we're talking about.
But then there's a special meaning to this coins and this scale weight,
Yeah.
in Chinese traditional of better custom,
Yeah.
in Shantung area, Shantung province
Mhm.
area. I mean, underneath the coffin, they dig up a little bit, ditch, and they place a basket with one set of 3 items, including
Oh,
money
Wow.
and this, what do you
Those
call
weights.
it, weight?
We'll call them weights.
Yeah. And also the brush, writing
The
brush,
writing brush.
all set.
So that's a tradition from Shandong
Shandong province.
province, and we're
It's
finding
a long tradition of China.
We're finding this in Tahori and
In
Korea.
Tahori too. I mean, people don't just.
There's a connection, in other
Yeah.
words.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
And then there is a bell for horse.
Okay. Yeah.
Very strange, huh? And in the same area, they found this Japanese-made pottery of the 2nd century. So that's another indication of some connection, with the and all this bite.
No, the horse
Horse
gear.
Why horse
tackle
bait in the
and-
tombs? Good question.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if you have this kind of product to do horses, there had to be horses
Then look here.
that were used, and then
Armor.
okay, armor plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why armor plate in the tomb from China? Then also this beads,
The beads. Yep.
They are fond of this glass beads.
We talked about glass
Oh,
beads in our
jade
last episode.
and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And interesting, all this different shaped of offering to the ancestor.
The different
with different
offering
fruits,
dishes.
huh?
And there's remnants of the offering.
From the same tomb.
Yeah.
And the question is this one here. This, what we call the yulmo. And yulmo is one of the luxury item for aristocrats in China.
Yeah.
They believe there's special power soothing.
Yeah.
So they are imported from Vietnam.
Okay.
But in Korea, it's imported only in Korea dynasty.
That's the first record we have, but we're finding this a
In-
1,000 years earlier.
Yeah,
In Korea.
in the same tomb.
In the same tomb as this person who was buried in that tomb must have been somebody special.
That's what I think.
Uh,
And look, all this pot, lacquer, and the fleeing people wouldn't carry this pot,
yeah.
wooden pot.
If you're fleeing,
Yeah,
you have at the most a backpack or a bag
that's right.
with essentials. You don't carry these kinds
All
of
this
tools.
interesting finds in that tombs.
Well, and they found all kinds of agricultural tools, weapons. We talked about the daggers.
Chinese mirror,
And Chinese manufactured mirrors.
coins.
So there's a connection between the people at Tahori and China,
That's what I
without
think.
a question.
So I've insist Tahori,
Yeah.
where this
Yeah.
archaeological find,
Yeah.
of all this luxury goods from China of
Mm.
first century BC.
Mm.
They must be somebody who is very important, aristocrat, who's buried there.
Well, and with armor plating, it would suggest a military commander level
Most likely,
of somebody.
why this military armor in the tomb?
Otherwise, there would
in
be.
Tahori.
Yeah.
There was more or less a peaceful people living
Right.
around there.
Right.
There was no,
Huh.
bickering or fighting
Yeah,
in that
we don't
time.
have- Now, you brought up the year 356
Yeah.
in the modern era,
Right.
in the current era. That's when when the Kims basically took over Shilla.
Right.
And we no longer have Pox or Sox
No.
as the royal family.
No.
They may have still been some minor royals, but the Kims then become the
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
royal family.
Yes.
And we have indications that these people lived in the Tahuri area and perhaps some other nearby for 300 years
Right.
or so.
Now, third evidence I found
Yeah,
was writings in Korean Chronicle.
in the Korean Chronicle.
That
That's
states
the Korean Chronicle is what we call in Korean Samguk Sagi.
exactly.
Yeah.
And in around 209 to 211, there was a conflict or war between two groups. One group called Kara.
Okay,
The other group is 8 Marine states
okay.
in the southern coast of
Okay.
a peninsula.
So these 8 marine states would have been in coastal areas most likely.
coastal, 8 of them.
And there were 8. And
3 of them
So-
is known by name,
okay,
like Changwon, Kolpo,
Changwon would have been one
or
of those.
Chine, Kosapo,
Okay.
or the other place. And this Tahori is very close, about 20 kilometers from the coastal area.
Yep.
And there's the coastal people. But then there's a first big conflict between these two groups. Why? I've shown this picture of iron ore and all this instruments, tools for agriculture and so
Right,
on.
Right.
So they had sort of primitive or so whatever home industry
Mm-hmm.
making all this product.
Right. Yeah.
So
Some
they
kind of
must
a
have been-
village industry with the iron ore.
So my guess is
Yeah.
they had sort of a trading business.
Hmm.
in the first century.
That would be
or second
likely. It's a
century.
likely
Yeah,
conclusion. Yeah.
and even there's a Japanese pottery. So
So the trade
somehow,
went that
even
way.
to
Yeah.
Japan.
But let's remind our viewers that the island of what we call in Korea Temado
Yeah,
or Tsushima
Yeah.
in Japanese
Yeah.
is closer to the peninsula than Jeju-do is.
yeah.
So-
I think
so
the
trading-
stepping stone, more or
Trading
less, yeah.
with Japan would have been a very logical and
And-
not a distant relation.
The thing is, this chronicle states the security people was assisted by these people in Gyeongju, 100 kilometers away, in the second century. So there must have been some connection.
Okay, let's go. So the people at Gyeongju would have been the Poks and the Suks running
Before,
the government there.
But now it
And-
become that.
But in Tahori is the Kims, and the Shilla people are coming and helping the Kims in Tahori.
That's right.
Okay.
According to this
But according to the
chronicle.
Chronicle. Okay.
So I've been wondering,
Yeah.
why this people in two different area so far away came to help each other.
100
So-
kilometers is even today. It's a distance.
It's quite Especially
we
no
don't
car.
we don't walk.
no,
In those days, I mean, the travel wasn't impossible.
right?
Horseback would have taken many days.
There's a little hint though
Yeah.
in Chinese, Korean chronicle. There were in-laws, so
They were
they
in-laws.
have
yeah,
known
so-
each other somehow. But also Korean chronicle state people from southern coastal area always attack this Gyeongju area.
Hmm.
So probably this Gyeongju people had a grievance against this
Against the coastal
coastal people,
states. Well, yeah, that could be. Yeah.
So
yeah.
the three
Mm.
reasons why they've there was a conflict,
Yeah.
a war between two
Yeah.
groups,
Yeah.
So what I claim, what
Mm.
I conjecture is this Tauri people, the Kim's what I claim, had a iron trading business,
Mhm.
but then this new group from this coastal area took over. So there's a trading conflict.
They had yeah, and those were common throughout history of the world in many places.
So this was 209 to 211.
211. So there's a 3-4 year period.
Curiosity, this Korean Chronicle state this the fight was between Postal Marine Group
Mm-hmm.
against Kara Briki.
Okay.
Kal
Which
is
Yes.
Kal Hwa
Hua
Song.
Song. Mm.
And in Idu writing,
Yeah.
this Kal is the G-I-O-T, gut.
Called. Okay.
Or in Korean people would call it gul or
Called.
kotsu.
Oh,
But
okay.
I believe the kol is the sound that the Korea used it. And according to Idu way, I read it as kara.
Kara. Mm.
And the hwa is fire.
Mm.
In Korean word is pul, puri.
Puri.
Puri is the community
Mhm.
or village.
Mm-hmm.
The village of, actually kal stand for reed.
The Reeds.
So reed village is the
Reed
name.
Village. Yep.
So as I said, this Tauri area, reed area,
Yep.
it fits very well.
It fits well. And you know, in ancient times especially, people would name their places after local some features. That was
And
very common. Yeah.
so this fits
yeah,
very
that fits
well.
well.
And Kara is the name of the Asian name for these
for
people in
the-
Tahori.
In Tahori, yeah.
And
yeah.
there was a fight between two
Yeah.
groups. Huh?
Yeah. Mm,
So there's a third evidence. Huh?
yeah. Yeah.
So
How reliable is the Korean Chronicle?
that's a good question, though.
Okay. yeah.
But I'm not checked with always archaeological finds,
Yeah.
to make sure
Yeah.
that what's claimed
Yeah.
in Chronicle is true.
But what my point
Yeah.
being, the Samguk Sagi, the Korean Chronicle, was put together in the early years of Koryo Kingdom, 1100 something, 1200.
It's in
was it?
1145.
1145. So it's many centuries removed from this time period.
That's
but
right.
you also have checked with Chinese records that are much older.
That doesn't, Chinese Chronicle doesn't refer to this
Doesn't
conflict.
refer to this conflict. Okay, but you've done over the past years checking of some of those facts.
So one of the curious thing is, these people, Soks and Kims, lived in the fortified walls.
The fortified
According
cities,
to
walled cities.
Chinese Chronicle.
That's
And they found still the same fortress around Gyeongju, Walsang. And so it's so curious. Kalhwa Song means there's a walled.
Sung means a walled city. We sometimes translate that as castle, but
That's right. But
it's not a European
fortified wall
or walled city, walled
When
town.
I visited Tahori, I need to check, but then I could see all the cut stone
scattered
all over,
Okay.
So I suspect I won't try to make a second trip to make sure. But then anyway, so they was also living in walled,
Well,
community.
it was common in China. It would have been common here. So
So all these things tied together. So Tauri must have been occupied by this refugee or one who fled from China. The Shin dynasty, which lasted for over 15 years.
It was short.
Former Han China, later China. In first century.
Short.
And they came probably 23 AD to the Tauri area with all this luxury goods of China. And then they were living there and had some nice business trading iron ores. But then there's later comers from the port states, they had a fight. And somehow they settled down again until 356, when they heard the rumor, the story that the Baekje took over Michi Hall in 346.
Okay, Baekje took over the previous kingdom state called Michi.
At Incheon.
Okay, it was at Incheon
That's
originally.
what I claim.
Right. We've talked about that in some other discussions. So what we now know as Baekje, 347, they take over a large territory. And so the people at Tahori are saying what?
From China. Tahori people.
They're from
the Kims
China.
From
and so
the Huns.
So they're saying, let's grab our own piece of the pie.
That's what I conjecture, but I'm not sure how they took over the power.
But that's really still one of the mysteries, because we don't really know.
No.
Now we do know there's in-law connections. We've seen some of that, but suddenly the Pak and the Suk clans are no longer kings, but the Kims are, and from 356 in the Shilla kingdom, we have now for the next almost 600 years, Kim,
almost,
Kim
356, 9
to
or
9 something, The Kims are the kings.
And so what I claim is Tahori is that the battleground or the community stayed in for 300 years. And they took power in Shilla in 356 on. And this very curious, findings, and but the people wouldn't believe it, because all this Kim's, Parks, Soks, all born from an egg.
They all came from a golden egg or a goose or some mystical story.
I understand. Very difficult to understand, to comprehend the connection that I've been present with all the archaeological evidence, documented and otherwise. But I guess
we know as logical people who understand science that those kings were not born from golden eggs.
Okay.
We know that.
All right.
So those foundation stories, they have a role.
Yeah.
But in reality, these were human beings
That's right.
who came from somewhere,
Somewhere.
who were marrying and intermarrying and producing families and children and grandchildren. But I found some interesting things also about what happened in Shilla when the Kims took over in 356.
What is it?
We suddenly start getting Chinese characters being used widely.
Not exactly at the beginning, but
the,
later on.
I mean, it starts coming in.
Yeah.
And then Buddhism soon becomes an important part of Shilla.
No, the first coming
along
of the Goguryeo and Baekje, then century later. To
But things changed. And the Kims kind of were at the leading edge of that very interesting social dynamic of change. And then, as we know from history, within a few hundred years, they had completely taken over the whole southern 2/3 of the peninsula. They became a very powerful kingdom. So they were just waiting for 300 years.
That's right.
For whatever reason.
Can you believe it?
It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe.
Granted. And so I can, I can understand how the history community would say, well, we're not sure. But there's little hints of things that should raise questions saying, well, now, wait a minute. How did this get there? The sunken ship off the coast, well, they've only found one because the other 2,000 ships didn't sink. Lots of trading back and forth.
If they were trading.
If they were trading, but it would be logical to imagine.
But
we don't have written records, but it's logical to imagine that
if
people aren't isolated.
No.
We don't live, even if we have a walled city, we're not living in a vacuum. There's others out there.
Final remark is in the 3rd century Chinese chronicle, it states in southern part of Korea, there were 3 Hans, Ma Han, Pyo Han, Chin Han. But no, I mean, there are about 6, 8 plus 12 would be 80, right?
Yep.
80 place names are written down on record in
the Chinese Chronicles. Yeah.
How is not there?
Yeah.
Or the Karabri.
Yeah.
It's not there. So complete isolation, more or less, except connection with the Sokso, through the intermarriage, because probably they found out they're from China.
Yeah,
they spoke
Chinese.
Yeah. So, so they sort of became very close. Getting married even.
Yeah. Well,
so it seems very logical, to all these 3 evidences. One in tombstone inscription
of Munmu.
Second in archaeological findings in Tahori. Then also the Chinese chronicles, Korean chronicle, but Karabri.
Yep.
And well, to my mind, there's no doubt that Tahori was a sort of a community. The Kims took refuge for 333 years before he become.
They became
royal family.
The royal family of Shilla. It's questions like that should cause us to think and wonder about our previous understandings. New evidence comes forth. We need to take a look at previous evidence. In your own field of physics, that's been done ever since the beginning. And most sciences are that way. History is also that way. In North and South America, archaeological evidences are pushing the timeline back thousands and tens of thousands of years earlier than what they thought for a long time it had been. And in Korea, we're not seeing quite as much progress. We hear the national narrative, I call it. Here's the accepted story. And people and I know academics are trying to keep their jobs and whatever. I'm kind of sympathetic to that, but raising the questions, I think in the field of history or other fields is the more important element of research and study. Raise the questions, and you have raised so many questions over your past 30 years of studying this. It's amazing.
I'd like to make one final remark.
Okay.
I have this Idu
Mm.
as a secret weapon,
Okay.
to figuring out some of the words in the records, that helps greatly.
Yeah.
And then also I depend on archaeological finds, Otherwise, I don't know how you can validate
You can't
what's
validate.
written in the
Yeah.
record.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a two secret weapons.
Those are
That's
and
ideal.
Edu is
Yeah.
as we've talked, one of the important
Yeah.
parts of deciphering any ancient records that we find.
So
So, all right. Well, Dr. Kim, thank you. It's
You're
been a
welcome.
very good discussion today.
thank you.
We hope that you'll look at our previous discussions as well, and we'll probably have something coming up in the near future. Thank you, and goodbye.
Okay, this is fun.
Great.
Yeah.
I thought it was good, I think. Was that okay?
Yeah.
알까 나는 미처 몰랐네 나는 미처 몰랐네